Hello, my name is Joanne. I'm a practitioner at Natural Healing Center, and tonight's Facebook Live is going to be about common food sensitivities and healthy swaps you can make for those foods that you might be sensitive to. So I'm just going to go ahead and get us going today. Feel free to say hello if you're in the chat, and as always, you're welcome to ask any questions throughout if you're joining me live or if maybe you are tuning in later for the replay. So we test all of our clients to see what foods they may be sensitive to. And that's because when your body has foods it's sensitive to, it can cause inflammation and swelling. It can be a constant stressor on the body that is going to make it really hard for our clients to be able to heal themselves. In addition to that, when you have foods you're sensitive to, your body is utilizing its resources and energy to handle that stress. And imagine if you are continuing to have those foods year over year and it's in a constant state of stress, inflammation, and swelling. So if you can pinpoint what those foods are, work to reduce and avoid them, as a result, that inflammation and swelling is going to go down. And also your body, it's going to free up your body's energy and resources to handle maybe other stressors on the body or do its daily activities. Food sensitivities aren't the same as allergies, so they can change with time. So we will test clients throughout their program to see what they're ready to cut out right now or what would be in their best interest to reduce or avoid. And then also as their body, works to rebalance and repair itself through foods and other natural remedies, what foods we can start to add back in. And that's really exciting too. So the number one food sensitivity that I'm going to start with is corn. So you may not realize it, but corn really is everywhere. It's one of the most widely eaten foods in our present diet. So you can think of corn itself, like corn on the cob or corn kernels in a can. It can be corn chips or corn tortillas. You may not make this connection, but say you're having conventionally produced meat like chicken or beef. If that animal was fed corn, then that's a way that it can get into your system as well. Corn starch, which is used in a lot of fried foods. Corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup, which is used as sweeteners in a lot of desserts and packaged products. And then also vegetable oils will typically be a combination of different oils, and it could potentially be corn oil or soybean oil. I'm going to talk about soy in a little bit too. So another fact that you may or may not be aware of is that corn is actually a grain. It's not a vegetable. And so like many grains, it has fewer vitamins and minerals than other foods such as most vegetables, fruits, nuts, proteins like seafoods and meats. Corn can be especially problematic if you already have existing gut issues. And so that's because corn, like other grains, contains a class of proteins that your body can't properly break down. And this can either lead to or exacerbate what's known as leaky gut when there's a compromised intestinal wall. It can also contribute to the growth of bad bacteria in the gut and affect your digestive health that way too. Another thing to note, and I won't get too into it, but almost all the corn grown in the U.S. is genetically modified. So GMOs have not been proven in any way to be safe. They are actually, studies lean in the other direction, which is why several countries have banned GMOs, but we have not here in the U.S. And actually, manufacturers aren't obligated to list if something has been genetically modified. So you could be having a lot of genetically modified foods and not even be aware of it. And even corn, so that has been genetically modified, can have high concentrations of what's called glyphosate. Glyphosate is a chemical, and it's the active ingredient in the widely used herbicide called Roundup. In a recent study, of the participants, like American participants, 93% of those participants tested for glyphosate in their urine. So that kind of gives the idea of how prevalent it's used. And even if you're eating organic corn and organic other foods, it's possible that it's still going to contain glyphosate. So you imagine inorganic farms and organic farms, being adjacent to each other or close to each other, you have the potential for like wind to pick up those types of chemicals and move them around. So even though corn may contribute to a small nutritional value amount, it's really not worth it given everything that I just said. And just going back real quick, I was talking about glyphosate and why is that important. So glyphosate toxicity, it can put you at a higher risk for deficiencies in essential minerals like manganese and iron that can contribute to conditions like diabetes, dementia, and anemia problems. It can contribute to leaky gut, which causes disrupts your immune function and increases inflammation, puts you at other risk for other chronic diseases. It reduces neurotransmitter production, and that can lead to mood issues, depression, anxiety, and also cognitive decline. And also glyphosate toxicity can also have an impact on your hormones, and it in particular, Ray, it in particular can affect your pituitary, which rules your digestion, and also your gonads, which are your like testes, and your ovaries, which are imperative in like fertility. So some reasons to avoid corn and foods with glyphosate. But what if you are trying to avoid corn, then what are some things you can have? So if you're used to having corn on your plate, kind of like as a starch, then you can go for some good root vegetables that are really satiating. So that would be like sweet potatoes or beets, squash, Brussels sprouts if they're okay for you. Other options would be beans or lentils, again, if those are okay for you, and wild rice. So if you're having those like more starchy foods, then what I would recommend is, you don't want to overdo it on them either, even though some of them may be good for you nutritionally. So if you're having something starchy on your plate, then just go for the size of the palm of your hand, and we all have different palm sizes, so you would go with your hand specifically. If you are having tortillas, then there's a lot of alternatives that you can find now at the grocery store. So you can find tortillas that are made of cassava, which is a vegetable, chickpea, almond flour. There's tortillas or wraps that are made out of egg whites, coconut, even jicama. That one I've seen at Trader Joe's. And you can always use lettuce. So if you're making like turkey tacos and you usually use like a wheat tortilla or a corn tortilla, then you could just use a lettuce wrap instead. And for chips, because corn chips can be a go-to snack, you can use cassava chips. So Siete is one brand, but there's a lot out there. And then you could also do, if you want like a salty, crunchy snack, then you could do seed crackers, and that would be a good swap too. As I mentioned, if you're purchasing conventional meats like chicken and beef, then go organic with those, especially because you want to avoid that the corn that they have been fed. So go for like grass-fed beef, pasture-raised eggs, seafood, wild caught, because even corn can be fed to fish as well. Corn starch, some substitutes for that would be arrowroot and tapioca starch, and then high fructose corn syrup, which is used as a sweetener in packaged foods. I'm going to get to that a little bit more when I talk about sugar and caffeine, so you can just hang tight for that one, but we'll talk about some swaps for that. So another food sensitivity, so this is number 2, that you would want. All of these I would highly suggest that you get tested for, because everyone's different, but these are the most common ones we find here at Natural Healing Center as being an impact on someone's health. So gluten is one, and gluten is found in wheat, barley, and rye. And in terms of conditions related to gluten, it can range. So sometimes it's a gluten sensitivity, sometimes it's an actual wheat allergy, and then beyond that there's also celiac disease. And oftentimes people who test negative for a wheat allergy or celiac disease may still have a gluten sensitivity. So all those 3 conditions have very similar symptoms. So people may experience bloating, abdominal pain, diarrhea, constipation, headaches, fatigue, joint pain. They may have skin rashes, depression, anxiety, and anemia. So imagine if you are feeling tired one day, or you have a skin rash, or you feel like low mood. Consider how certain foods might be affecting you, and actually it would be really good to maybe do like a food journal to see if there's certain foods that trigger those symptoms. And that's really what we do try to do here at Natural Healing Center, is getting to the root cause of patient symptoms. All those digestive issues, skin issues, hormonal imbalance. And then another thing with gluten, or the types of foods that it's in, including wheat. I touched on glyphosate when I talked about corn, and it's additionally used on wheat just before it's harvested. And what glyphosate does is actually it kills the crop and it dries it out, the wheat crop, so that it can be harvested sooner rather than waiting for it to die naturally. In addition to wheat, oats are treated in a very similar fashion. So glyphosate has been found to be present on a lot of oat products. So what do you think when you think of oats? You think of like oatmeal, but also like oat cereal like Cheerios, granola, oat-based like snack bars, and even in the organic products as well. All right, so if you're trying to avoid wheat, then what are some options for you? So there's bread, right, which I understand a lot of us enjoy. So the best option, I would say, is to go with a grain-free bread, and you can find these at health food stores like Mother's and Sprouts and Whole Foods, and they're primarily going to be in the freezer section. And I'll give you a few brands that I like to recommend to clients. So one is called Unbun. There's another one called Base Culture, and those are made with primarily almond flour. Julian Bakery does another one that's almond flour. They also have a variety that's made with coconut flour. So if you're sensitive to almonds, then that one would work well for you. There's another one called Pacha, and that is buckwheat based, and that's at Mother's and possibly at Whole Foods. So grain-free would be the best option, right? And then, but if that's kind of a far leap for you, then maybe you start with just going gluten-free, okay? Potentially with gluten-free, yes, you're avoiding gluten, but there could be other grains in there that you don't like as well. One bread that does test well sometimes with clients is carbonate, so I have recommended that one too as like a stepping stone, but if you can go grain-free, then like even better. All right, good. So wheat is also in like pasta and noodles, so there's a lot of alternatives available for that too. So if you're used to like a wheat pasta, you can do a pasta that's made from chickpea or cassava or lentils, but again, these are still like kind of starchier things, so you want to stay with that like one palm, so if you're like making all this pasta and you fill your like whole plate with pasta and you have 3 palmfuls, then that's probably a little too much. So what you can do is, you can beef it up with some veggies, or you can mix in some like wheat alternative noodles that are like that are made from vegetables that aren't as starchy. So some examples of that would be like hearts of palm noodles, zucchini noodles. There's also what are called shirataki, konjac, and kelp noodles. Those are all made from sea vegetables. So you can do a mix of them, or you can just do one or the other. But if you are doing those starchier ones, then be mindful of your portions. I already talked about tortillas and corn, so you kind of refer back to that if you want to sub for wheat tortillas. And then when it comes to baked goods, I highly recommend making your own, and that way you can control not only like the flour component, so instead of wheat flour or white flour, you can try almond, buckwheat, or coconut, or go for a combination. And then in addition to that, you can control like what sugar is being used and how much. So there are some decent brands at the grocery store in terms of like gluten-free and low sugar snacks. So again, I like Siete and Hue, and There's another, Simple Mills. Yeah, I mean, I always kind of recommend those ones, but they are really good. Crackers, the ones that you can find at the grocery store, Simple Mills, Flackers, which are made from flax seeds, Ella's Flats, which are at Gelson's, but also on Amazon as well. Those are some store-bought brands. Again, don't overdo it on those either. They're also, you want to be mindful because they're still minimally processed, so even though like they're a better option, you don't want to be having them all the time. What would be like your best option in terms of like seed crackers is making your own at home. This works well if you have a dehydrator, because then you're not heating up the seeds at all and you get all the integrity of those good fats. And then you may not think it too, but wheat and gluten are also in certain sauces and dressings. So, you know, best option, make your sauces and dressings at home. Some of my like go-to ingredients would be like coconut aminos, fish sauce, tahini, and then different oils like olive oil, avocado, sesame seed oil, lemon lime, if that's okay with you. And I'll get into sweeteners, but like monk fruit and stevia, and kind of make a sauce with those. Store-bought brands I recommend would be Primal Kitchen. They have really clean ingredients in their condiments and their dressings. And then a new one I found recently that I like so far is called Kevin's, and I've seen that one at Sprouts, but I'm sure it's at other places too. And it says, I think it says like paleo or keto on there. They have also, in addition to condiments, they have actually like ready-made meals that are, again, minimally processed, so I wouldn't have it like all the time, but if you're in a bind, it's like a good one to have. Okay, third food I'm going to go over is dairy. So dairy includes milk, cheese, and yogurt. And lactose is a sugar. It's found in milk and dairy products, and lactose intolerance is extremely common. It's actually estimated that 65% of the world's population, hi Audra, has trouble digesting lactose. So symptoms of lactose intolerance include abdominal pain, bloating, diarrhea, gas, nausea. The thing too with this one is there's so many options for dairy nowadays. So if you are used to like regular cow's milk, you can go for almond milk, hemp milk, coconut milk. Sometimes I mix them. Hi Lillian. Sometimes I mix them because, you know, they'll have different consistencies and tastes. So if I'm making like a chia pudding or something like that, I might go for half almond milk, and then I might go for half like coconut milk. Another option would be goat milk. And then if it's okay with you, and again, depending on how you test, potentially raw milk might be okay. And that hasn't been, it hasn't undergone the pasteurization process. So it still has those like really good enzymes and probiotics that would be really beneficial for our body. And then cheese, if you're a cheese lover, you don't have to give it up completely, but what I would recommend is going for like goat cheese or sheep cheese. So there's regular goat cheese, and then there's like, they have all different varieties now. So there you can get like a raw goat cheddar, or you can do some examples of sheep cheese would be like manchego is a sheep cheese, and also feta can be a sheep cheese, but you just want to pay attention to the labeling on the package, because it'll say specifically if it's made from sheep's milk or it's in sheep's brine. A lot of times, like if it says like authentic Greek or Israeli, and then it will say in sheep's milk or sheep's cheese, whatever, then that's good. But if it doesn't say it explicitly, then I would make the assumption that it's been made from cow's milk. And you got to think that, you know, cows are this 2,000-pound animal, and their milk is intended to have a baby calf, go from that to a 2,000-pound animal. And so that's the hormones that we can potentially compete with when we ingest those products. So when it comes to goat or sheep, it's a little bit more tolerable for our body. In terms of yogurt, same thing. You can do sheep or goat yogurt. Actually had this as a snack today, and I was going to show it to you, but this is like a sheep yogurt from Whole Foods, and I test well for sheep and goat. dairy, but I still don't like to do it a whole lot. I do it from time to time, but it's good to switch it up. So this is a one that you can get at Whole Foods, and if you're getting yogurt, always get plain yogurt. Usually when there is fruit in there already, like the sugar content is a lot higher, and then if you get the plain yogurt, you can always add in fruit, or you can add in like stevia or monk fruit to sweeten it, but that way you have control over the sugar content. There's coconut yogurt too. Doesn't have nearly as much protein, but still good probiotics. And then also, if you're using butter, you can sub that for ghee, which is it's actually like cow's milk butter, but it's had the lactose removed, so it's had the impurities removed. You could do olive oil, avocado oil. If you're using like butter as a spread, then you could use like avocado instead, so like an avocado toast instead of toast with butter, or almond butter. So these are just like some swaps that you can make. It's definitely not an exhaustive list, but just to give you an idea of what your options are. So the next one is sugar. So why is sugar a problem? So sugar causes inflammation. So you can think of inflammation as pain. So if you have a headache or a toothache or a stomach ache or joint pain, those are indications of inflammation. Or if you have like a condition with itis on the end, so like gastritis, arthritis, pancreatitis, those are all indications of inflammation as well. Sugar weakens our immune system, so it actually decreases the effectiveness of our immune cells for up to 50% for 5 hours after we eat it. It can pull minerals from like calcium and magnesium out of our bones, so then we might have cavities, we might have weak bones, and lack of minerals also can affect our moods. And it also disrupts sleep. So if you're having too much sugar and you also notice that you're not sleeping so well, that can be a potential cause. There's what's called the glycemic index. So it's a measure of how fast a single food item can raise your blood sugar, and it goes from 0 to 100, with 0 being, it doesn't cause a big spike in blood sugar, or 100 is like the fastest it can spike. So in general, you want to go for those sweeteners that are low on the glycemic index. So 2 that I recommend are natural sweeteners like stevia and monk fruit. They're both, naturally occurring, little to no calories. They're a lot sweeter than sugar, so you don't have to use the same ratio. You want to start with like a small amount, and then you can always add more to taste. And they're also heat stable, so you can cook with them and bake with them. In either case, you want to make sure you look at the ingredients list, make sure it's an unrefined variety, that there's no additives in there. Sometimes with monk fruit, because it is so sweet, manufacturers will mix it in with other natural products. One example is erythritol, and usually that's fine. Again, we can always test to see if something is going to be okay for your body, if it's going to bother you, but in general, I would say, even though these are like great sweeteners, don't overdo it on them either. And it's great to use these in your own like recipes when it comes to like cooking and like making say like desserts in particular. Again, that way you have a lot more control, as opposed to what you already buy that's already made or already packaged together at the grocery store. Okay, so 2 more for you. So the next one is caffeine. So caffeine is a chemical, and it is found in certain beverages and foods. So the obvious like coffee, soda, tea, energy drinks, chocolate. It's a stimulant, so I understand, if you're tired one morning or you're feeling like lack of focus, wanting that like spike of energy from coffee. But I would also urge you to consider, why are you tired in the first place? Like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you stressed? Are you not eating enough? And really working on addressing the root cause of your tiredness before you find something else that is essentially masking your symptoms, right? And then you just have that kind of like you go up and then you go down again because you're going to crash at some point. So a lot of people can consume coffee without side effects, but some people are more sensitive and they can experience reactions with just a little bit of coffee. So symptoms of caffeine sensitivity could be like a rapid heartbeat, anxiety, jitters, insomnia, nervousness, and restlessness, like you can't sit still. If you have any kind of sleep issues going on, if you have any immune challenges, any mood disorders or fluctuations, I think it would be in your best interest to avoid it completely. And again, food sensitivities aren't the same as allergies, so they can change with time, but it may be the case that your body just needs a little break from it right now. And with caffeine, take it, titrate down slowly. So say, for example, someone comes in and they have been having like 2 cups of coffee for years. I wouldn't ask them to just cut out coffee like starting tomorrow. I'd ask them to what would be a small step in reducing coffee for them. So let's just say, for example, you go from 2 cups of coffee to 1.5, and then you hang out there for a while and you see how that feels. And then you can even take it down to 1, and then you hang out there for a bit. And then maybe you go to a half, or maybe you start to swap in other options like a green tea or a black tea that has a little bit less caffeine in it, so you're still titrating down. And then you go from that to white tea, which has even less, to an herbal tea, which would be the best option that has no caffeine. If you really because I think coffee too, it's yes, you want the caffeine, but maybe it's a habit and a ritual for you too, so you just swap that in with something else. So maybe you do a bone broth or something like that, or there's also herbal teas that will mimic the taste and smell of coffee, and they work really well for our clients. So one is called Ticino, and that's made from roasted dandelion leaves, and there's another one called Rasa, which is a coffee alternative, and I like that one too because it has some adaptogens like ashwagandha and heishi. So those are good ones. And then if you're used to having soda, go for sparkling water, sugar-free kombucha. There's sodas called Zevia and Olipop that are stevia sweetened. If you're wanting energy drinks, unsweetened coconut water, water with a pinch of salt to get your minerals, sugar-free electrolyte mixes like LMNT is a good one. And then we have one at our office from Body Health that works really well too. And then chocolate, if you're having a sweet tooth, maybe you go for some natural sugars like berries, or maybe I know almond butter works well for me in calming sweet cravings sometimes. And again, you can refer to my Facebook Live that I did a little while ago called How to Curb Sugar Cravings, and you'll get some more tips there. And then my last one for tonight, this is definitely not the only common food sensitivity left, but the last one I'm speaking of tonight, because it comes up quite a bit, is soy. So like corn, soy production has been widely connected or is widely notorious for using also genetically modified organisms. And according to studies, GMO soy can result in adverse effects on the human bodies that may not be immediate. So it's not I ate corn and I feel okay, but these effects can arise several years later, right? And again, when it comes to GMO, it's relatively new, so the research really isn't there to say, is it safe or not safe? But digestive symptoms or symptoms related to soy sensitivity might be similar to the others. Maybe you're feeling tired, you have skin rashes, you have migraines, headaches, and low mood. And just like corn, soy is everywhere too. So think soy sauce, soy milk, tofu, tempeh, edamame, textured soy products. And there are many types of foods that can be derived from soy, and where soy actually won't be listed on the label. So you could get familiar with those, but some include natural flavors, thickening agents, stabilizers, vegetable oils, hydrolyzed plant protein, things like that. So what are some healthy swaps? So if you're used to soy sauce, then my go-to is coconut aminos. It's made from coconut sap, and it has a very similar taste to soy, but it's a little sweeter. So what I do is I just end up using a little more salt when I cook with it, and I think it works really well. If you're used to like soy milk, then hemp, coconut, almond, those would work well. And then in terms of, say you're a vegetarian or a vegan, and tofu, tempeh, all those are your go-to like protein sources, then some I recommend are sacha inchi seeds, and you can get these with the seeds to snack on, or they also come ground up, and you can use them like as a protein powder. I throw it in my buckwheat along with like smoothies and stuff like that, but it's great because it is a complete protein, but it has very little carb. Spirulina is another good one for vegans and vegetarians. It's made of algae and it's a good source of protein. If you're okay and you are fine with having like on a personal level like eggs or egg whites, then that would be a good source of protein. Nuts and seeds, we offer this line of amino acids too at Natural Healing Center that works really well for making sure clients get adequate protein. And then another one to consider is vegetable oil. So that can be a mix of different oils like soybean and corn. And so go for what I said. It was like avocado oil, ghee, olive oil, anything with that. Okay, so those are a few very common food sensitivities. There's definitely a lot more that we test for. So some that come to mind are like nightshades and beans, legumes. That's all part of an initial consultation at Natural Healing Center. We look for stressors on the body, so food sensitivities being one, metals, chemicals, pathogens, scars being others, and we work to create a roadmap for your health by figuring out what are the causes of your symptoms, any areas of stress, and then what would work well in terms of natural remedies to help heal and rebalance the body. And if you have any questions on how that initial consult works, feel free to leave a comment or reach out. Typically, the cost is $2.99 for a consult with me, but if you mention this Facebook Live on common food sensitivities, we'll apply a $50 credit, so that brings the price to $249. And if you enjoy the information that was presented and you know someone who would really benefit, or maybe a group of people, I ask that you share it with them. And thanks so much for your time and for watching. Next week, I'm going to be talking about bowel movements. So what is a healthy poop? What does it mean if you're constipated, if you have diarrhea? What are some like natural things you can do to try to get more regular bowel movements? What they should look like, what color they should be. So if you're interested, then you should tune in next time. And these replays are always available on our Facebook page. And I just want to thank you again, and thank you for the compliment about my teeth. I appreciate that too. And they have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Thanks.